Thanks for joining us. I'm Nancy Furness, and this is We've Got Issues. We are filming today at Coquitlam City Centre Library, and we'd like to thank the library for providing us with a space to carry out our interviews. I'd also like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded lands of Coquitlam First Nation. We'd like to thank the Coquitlam people who continue to live on these lands and to care for the lands and the waters and all that lies above and below. Today, I'm joined by Diane Watson, who is with the Invasive Species Council of BC. So thanks so much for joining us today, Diane.
Thank you for having me, Nancy. It's great to be here.
Now, can you just start us off by telling us a little bit about who is the Invasive Species Council of BC and what is your role? What do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Invasive Species Council of BC is a provincial nonprofit charity, and we focus on prevention policy, a lot of outreach and public awareness. We provide resources, toolkits, and training to industry, all levels of government, and First Nations to increase awareness on invasive species and try to prevent the spread.
Wow, that's a lot of territory that you're covering there. And you cover plants, insects, and you were telling me earlier aquatics?
Yeah, plants, insects, aquatics, animals, anything we can get our hands on, we try and produce more information, spread information so that everyone is aware that these things are going on.
So awareness is critical.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
You've told us about some of the damage that people might see in their own backyards,
Yes.
right? So these Japanese beetles are feeding on the leaves. The adults are eating the leaves. What are the larvae doing? Are they also causing damage?
Yes, the Japanese beetle larva will also feed on the roots of the same amount of plants that the adults will feed on the above ground parts. So that could affect of course, our nurseries and industries, but also our green spaces, golf courses, gardens, many different green spaces that we either like to recreate on or rely on for economic opportunities as well. So with industry, if Japanese beetle is in the area and at risk of moving this invasive pest, that could prevent a lot of industry partners from purchasing our products. So that could affect us economically. And also it just costs a lot of money to manage this invasive species as well.
Right. And it's got a wide host range. It sounds like if it's affecting horticultural plants, agricultural plants, in somebody's own backyard, can you give us a couple of examples of what it might affect?
Yeah, absolutely. Roses are definitely one of its favorites, unfortunately.
People get very passionate about their roses.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. So a lot of our garden communities definitely would get a big hit. Nursery and horticulture industries. A lot of trees can also be affected by Japanese beetle. They can defoliate full trees if they are well established in an area. Luckily, we're not at that point here in BC. So in places like the East Coast, Ontario, Quebec, those places are all just managing and living with Japanese beetle. Like they can't eradicate it at this point. So they're affecting the agriculture, they're affecting their green spaces and gardens. And we really don't want to get to that point here.
That's a pretty big hit to take. I didn't realize it was that destructive. What about turf grass and lawns and things? Would it also affect those?
Yeah, turf grasses and lawns are also a big one. The larvae do the most damage in these areas. So any green spaces, golf courses, things like that can also take a big hit from Japanese beetle.
Right. Can you tell us maybe a little bit about the life cycle? We know that they're damaging the roots. The larvae are eating the roots and the adults are going after leaves. When would people expect to see symptoms, during the year? When would we see this happening? And also, when would we see adult beetles?
Absolutely, yeah. So the larva will, of course, live in the soil throughout the winter months. They can burrow deeper to avoid that cold temperatures.
Oh,
So that's why they
okay.
do so well out on the East Coast. They can burrow
Right.
deep down to avoid that. And then in the springtime, the larva will come up and start to feed on the roots of turf. So you might start to see some damage at that point in the springtime. And then they'll emerge, and the Japanese beetle flight season is between June 15 and October 15. So this is typically when
Okay.
you will see them flying, see them eating. If they're in large enough numbers, we haven't really seen a lot here in the Lower Mainland during the season, but
Right.
of course our traps do.
What would an adult look like? Can you just
Oh yeah,
describe a little
absolutely.
bit what people might see?
Yeah, so the Japanese beetle is about 1 centimeter long,
Mm-hmm.
kind of an oval shape, so it's a little bit narrow as
Kind of like a
well.
beetle.
Yeah,
Okay.
typical beetle shape, but it is quite distinct. So it's got this beautiful emerald green head and body and copper brown wing coverings. But the most distinct feature of the Japanese beetle is the white tufts of hair that it has along the sides of its
Okay.
abdomen. So if you were to count the tufts, it would be 12 all the way around its abdomen.
So six on each
six
side.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have a emerald green head, a copper wings, a copper body kind of, and then these 6 white tufts on each side of the abdomen.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so now we know what to look out for, and we also know when to look out for it.
Yeah.
Now, recently in Port Coquitlam, a regulated area came into effect because this beetle has been found in Port Coquitlam.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit, what is a regulated area? What does that mean?
Of course, yeah. So the regulated area was established by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency.
That's a federal...
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
That's one of our federal partners and agencies in plant protection, plant pests.
Okay.
So the regulated area is established to prevent the movement of plants with soil attached or soil-related matter or growing media. So essentially any plant with some sort of soil attached to it is prevented from moving outside of this regulated area.
And that's because the larvae may be in there.
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah. So the larva may be in there, still feeding on the roots, or it's also really good practice as well. The Japanese beetle might be on the plants itself. So,
Okay.
But plants alone are not regulated, just plants with soil attached. So if you are trying to move any of these materials, you do need a movement certificate from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. So they're a great resource to understand if you need to get one,
Okay.
especially if you're in a regulated area.
And they would come out and maybe look at those plants and make sure that there's no Japanese beetle there?
They would try and identify where you're located. If you're in a regulated area, they would give you instruction on what to do with yard waste or
Right.
whatever you might want to move that has plants with soil attached.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have any idea, how did Japanese beetle find its way to Port Coquitlam?
It's really difficult to know. There's so many modes of transportation of invasive species. It could be plants with soil attached.
So somebody could have brought a plant in with
Yeah.
larvae or adults?
Exactly. It could be nursery stock. The larva could have been in there. It could have been produce with Japanese beetle clinging on to things like corn or flowers or things like that.
So even you need to look at corn. And...
Absolutely, yeah. So, but it is always human assisted, either unintentionally or intentionally. We are bringing invasive species wherever we go. And especially Japanese beetle is a really great hitchhiker too. They've got these little paws that are good at clinging on to everything. Really? So if you're in a park that's known to have Japanese beetle, they might cling onto your clothing or your blankets. And then also the municipalities that are part of this program also implement best practices for their staff and their crews to make sure they're washing equipment. And it can't cling to equipment or clothing, things like that. So making sure that all that is cleaned up shaken off just to make sure you're not passing around that pest.
Right. No, that sounds like it's quite intensive, but being aware that those pests are there, and especially in the regulated area, to be watching out for them is helpful. But are there other things that you're doing? Like, we've seen some traps out in the local area. Can you describe what the trap looks like, what's in the trap, and why is that trap there?
Yeah, absolutely. So since even before Japanese beetle was present in the lower mainland, traps have always been put out to just try and monitor if there are ever any new pests coming into BC. So with Japanese beetle in this program, we are have been trapping and continue to trap between Hope and Whistler, now in Kamloops as well. And those are set at different densities throughout the lower mainland, based on where Japanese beetle has been found. So any areas that have high detections of Japanese beetle will have higher amounts of traps.
So you're trying to pinpoint the populations more? Or?
Exactly. Okay. They help us identify where those populations are, what are the extents of those populations. So that helps us determine, or helps the CFIA also determine where to put the regulated area, and it helps the province determine where are we going to treat these areas that Japanese beetle are found as well. So federally,
they put out the traps. Provincially, they do the treatments if necessary.
Exactly.
And you're doing all the awareness raising and sort of collaborating with both of those entities.
Exactly, yeah. We are helping with outreach. We're also actually helping with surveillance at some capacity, and bringing all of these partners and stakeholders together in this collaborative program, because at the beginning of the response, it was identified that there wasn't just one organization or agency that can handle eradication. So collaboration is super important for this pest.
Okay, so you've put up those traps. What happens when you find a beetle?
Yes, so when a Japanese beetle is found in a trap, they will typically contact the CFIA, either bring it to the office, or someone will come to them and ship it off to a lab in Ontario, just to confirm the ID for sure is Japanese beetle.
Right. Okay, and then can you tell us a little bit, so you've put the traps out, you've identified there are beetles in the area, then what happens? There's a treatment that happens. Can you tell us a little bit about what that might be?
Yeah, for sure. So we're usually trapping for Japanese beetle between or within the flight season, so from June 15 to October 15. And once we receive all that data, at the end of the year, we will usually see what the results are, where we found them, and decisions are made on what to do with the regulated areas. If the regulated areas need to be expanded or established if there is no regulated area. And then before the spring, they start to talk about treatment. Right. So where those treatment activities will be most effective for the Japanese beetle.
And what is the treatment? Is it a spray or a larvicide, or can you tell us just a little bit about how it's applied?
Of course, yeah. It is a low-risk larvicide that they're using for Japanese beetle, and it is sprayed onto turf grasses. So usually a specific park or a landscaped area that is identified to have Japanese beetle in the area. So that's usually applied in the springtime, and occasionally in the fall, depending on the findings, but usually we don't get like the full data until the end of the season. So fall time can be a little bit tricky if it's too warm, too dry, not the right conditions for treating. So usually it's in the spring.
And is it only turf grass that's treated?
Yes, only turf grass at this point. Earlier on in the program, we did do foliar treatments where feeding was
after
found.
The adults?
Yeah, to go after the adults, but the larvicide is what we're carrying out at this point.
And what should people do if between June 15th and October 15th they're out and about and they come across an adult Japanese beetle? What should they do? Is there anything recommended?
Yeah, absolutely. So if someone were to find a Japanese beetle, the most important thing, first off, is to take a picture. Pictures are really, really important to help with identification.
And everybody almost has a phone now, right?
Exactly.
It's easy to do.
Yeah, and the cameras are getting better and better.
Yes.
So close up, different angles if possible.
Okay.
A picture is key, and then also the location, the date.
Okay.
And the time if possible, but location's really important too, because that definitely helps build our understanding and data of where Japanese beetle has been found. Once you've taken a photo, reporting, another super important part of that, reporting to the CFIA, either by phone call, email. They also have a reporting page on their website, and they actually now have a survey form that they have through an app. That's run by ArcGIS called Survey 123. And we actually have instructions on that on our ISCBC website as well. So reporting is another really important step.
So that's good to know, because I think sometimes people might find one and just not know what to do and not report it. So now we know what to do.
Exactly.
You know, I know that there are Japanese beetle traps that you can order online. They're in some of the garden centers. If somebody's within a regulated area, should they be purchasing their own trap and putting it out, or does that cause complications? Like, what would you recommend?
Yeah, if you're in a regulated area, I don't think it's super necessary to grab a Japanese beetle trap, because if there's Japanese beetle around, and there have been detections in a certain area, our trap density is already quite high.
Okay.
And those traps will attract any beetles that are in the area to that trap.
Ah.
So potentially it could attract it if you don't want it, if they're not in the area already. So letting the CFIA kind of
take care of that
take care of that part is good. If you're in an area where you, like, maybe there was Japanese beetle found in the past, or there might not be any in that area, it could be okay to do, it could help with monitoring of the pests too. But it's not super necessary, because we have pretty good coverage as well already.
So Diane, can you tell us a little bit about what the trap looks like, and also about those lures that are inside? I think there's 2 different kinds. Can you explain what the trap looks like and what those lures are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Japanese beetle trap is usually like a green or yellow color. It has some fins on top and has a big bottom. So some have compared it to like a bomb in some
like
cases, like a missile. Yeah, which is really funny, but it's kind of a good way to describe it. And there's usually a floral lure and a pheromone, sex pheromone attached to it to attract any beetles that are in the area. So it's non-toxic. It doesn't affect anything that would eat it. It's more just like a smell, and it comes in like the pheromone comes in like a little rubber lure. So
you're trying to trick the insect, the adult, into thinking, first of all, that there's a flower, some food, and then also possibly a mate.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. You know, and are they very effective? Do we know how effective they are in sort of luring in the beetles?
Yeah, they are really quite effective. They've done a really great job in helping us identify where the Japanese beetle are. They also are trying different methods with these traps to ensure that they're as effective as possible, depending on where the trap has been placed.
Okay. Do they also attract in other insects, or are they specific to the Japanese beetle?
Yeah, unfortunately, we do get a little bit of bycatch, because it is kind of just a general floral lure. So a few things that do like flowers can get trapped in there as well. But we're always trying to improve that process and identifying when we are catching these different insects, and trying to improve the process to make sure we're not doing that.
Okay, no, that makes sense, I think. And then, you know, your goal is eradication, right? So you're not wanting to manage this pest, you're wanting it gone completely. How do you know when it's gone?
Yeah, I know. It's definitely a tough call, but typically after 2 years of 0 detections is
That's
when...
high density trapping?
Yes, with the same trapping efforts. if there has been 0 detections 2 years straight.
Okay.
So a really great part of this program was that actually Vancouver last year had its first year of 0 detections.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, so fingers crossed on that. Since the first detection in 2017, we finally hit 0 detections in Vancouver. So the program works. It's just continuing all of our efforts that's really important. Surveillance, movement controls, reporting and identification and outreach, and treatment. Super important.
Yeah, so all of those elements working together. Okay. Can you tell us, are there any other species in the Tri-Cities region that, there's probably lots, but are there any in particular that are of concern, whether they're insect pests or other?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, a recent detection in the last year or so is emerald ash borer.
Go after our ash trees?
Yes, exactly. They go after our ash trees, and that is a really prominent tree species in our street trees.
In urban settings.
In urban settings,
yes.
exactly. And it's super important to understand this pest because they burrow into wood, they burrow into these ash trees, and sometimes these products are used as firewood.
So we move that firewood around with the larvae in there.
Exactly. So it's definitely like Buy Local, Burn Local is one of our other campaigns that we have. So if you're camping, if you're bringing firewood somewhere, it's always best to buy local and burn it where you buy it so that you're not accidentally bringing a pest with you.
Right. So don't move firewood.
Exactly. Yeah.
What does an adult emerald ash borer look like?
Yeah, so it's actually one of our lookalikes of Japanese beetle, I would say. So it's also got a beautiful emerald green color on it, but opposite. So the head is kind of a copper brown, where the wing coverings are an emerald green. And it tends to be a lot smaller. It's very slender, kind of like a bullet-shaped beetle.
Okay.
And it's quite small too, so it can be hard to identify because they're usually like all in the ash trees, minding their business.
You might not see it as easily as maybe a Japanese beetle. Yeah. So if somebody sees an insect with a copper-colored head and green wings, or green head and copper-colored wings, either way,
it would be very good to report that for sure. We want to protect our tree species here, and street trees are so important for shade and all of that. So
especially with our increasingly warm summers, and that kind of brings us to another question I have for you is, what about our changing climate? Yeah. Is that affecting what we're seeing coming in? Is it affecting like the severity or the frequency of invasive species coming into our area?
Yeah, absolutely. It could definitely affect the spread of invasive species. As the climate is warming, it's allowing more area for invasive species to start to spread into.
So they're moving north just...
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe, and then also coming in from other areas?
Yeah, it's providing more opportunity for invasive species to spread, absolutely. And especially with fires, a lot of invasive plants are very dry. They develop in these large monocultures and can really exacerbate forest fire intensity as well.
Oh, wow. So if people have a question about invasive species, either Japanese beetle or some of the other species or plant species, who's the first person they should contact? What's their first step?
Yeah, well, I think the Invasive Species Council is a really great, first go-to resource for invasive species in general. We have a lot of great resources online. We take a lot of inquiries through email as well. But depending on the pests, some other agencies might be more appropriate, like the Japanese beetle. CFIA is the #1 go-to for that. Reporting to the CFIA for Japanese beetle is very important, as well as emerald ash borer. Or the province might be another really good resource for that as well.
Okay, so if people wanted to know, though, they could contact you and you could direct them to whether it's provincial or federal, and maybe help them out with a phone number or an email address to get to the right place?
Exactly. Like even identification as well. We get a lot of reports through our website as well. We'll take photos and all that. So yeah, super happy to take any inquiries and put you in the right direction.
What an interesting job you have. Challenging but interesting. I bet there's never a dull moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and telling us a little bit about the Japanese beetle and some of the other invasive pests that might be on the horizon. So really appreciate it, and I hope we can talk again in the future.
Of course. Thank you so much, Nancy.
Okay, thanks for joining us. I'm Nancy Furness, and I've been speaking with Diane Watson from the Invasive Species Council of BC.
There is a beetle that is highly destructive and expensive to control, and it's been found in British Columbia. Japanese beetles have been very costly for Canadian homeowners, businesses, and government as they threaten crops and green spaces. BC is the only province that is considered free of Japanese beetles, and we need your help to keep it that way. If you see this distinctive-looking beetle, take a photo and report the location to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. The feature that distinguishes the Japanese beetle most is the white tufts along its abdomen. You may notice unique skeletonized lace-like leaves in your garden or dead patches in your lawn. Adults feed on leaves in the summer, and the larvae feed year-round on the roots of turf, grasses, and plants. They target over 300 species, including blueberries, grapes, fruit trees, maple trees, and roses. If we don't act now to stop these beetles from establishing in BC, the effect on our environment, industries, and economy will be devastating. Turf at schools, sports fields, and golf courses will be destroyed. Vineyards, orchards, and other farms will experience severe crop loss. Urban gardens and green spaces will be wiped out. To protect BC, we have 4 key tools: traps, treatment, movement restrictions, and public reporting. Traps show us where the beetle is and where it isn't. If you see these traps, please don't touch them. We need that data. Treatments are professionally applied to stop beetle establishment. Treatments are safe for people, pets, wildlife, and plants. Phew! Private property owners in regulated areas may be eligible for free treatment. Contact your local municipality for details. Movement restrictions keep beetles from spreading. Find out if you are in or near a regulated area and take care to not let Japanese beetle travel outside those areas. They can hitch a ride with transplant trees, plants from your yard and garden, turf, and green waste mixed with soil. You are required to get permission from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency before you move any plants with soil attached out of a regulated area. Shake it before you take it. Japanese beetle and other invasive species can cling to produce, flowers, clothing, blankets, boots, pets, tools, bikes, cars, and even sports equipment and bags. Always check for hitchhikers and give items a good shake before leaving a regulated area. Be vigilant for Japanese beetles. If you see one, we want to know. Try to take a clear photo of the suspect insect and record the precise location. Report that to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Don't let Japanese beetle devastate British Columbia. Let's keep this province pest-free. Everyone has a role to play. Visit our website to stay informed.